Gil Martin here for the Daily Packers Post, and welcome to the Tuesday episode for this week where we discuss in-depth daily coverage of your Green Bay Packers. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Hit the bell so that you get new episodes as soon as they drop. It's a strange thing because if you look at the numbers straight up, the Packers won 2 more games than they did a year ago. Clearly, I think this team, the 2024 Packers, were better top to bottom than the 2023 Packers. And yet, here we are right after the season came to a disappointing end in the playoff loss in Philadelphia. And it just feels like there was a better vibe around this team a year ago than there is now. And I wanted to discuss why. And I think part of it is the right now, the loss to the Eagles is still very fresh. It's only been a day or two, and it still stings. That I think is first and foremost. But I think there are some other reasons why the Packers are clearly, not feeling as optimistic now as they were a year ago. I'll start with the basics. Last year, they won a playoff game. This year, they did not. The upset win over the Dallas Cowboys, who you may remember were the number 2 seed a year ago in the NFC, gave this team a lot of optimism. It made them feel like, hey, we can compete with anybody. And not only did they upset the Cowboys in Jerry World, but they end up going to San Francisco, facing the eventual NFC champion 49ers a year ago. And, they were ahead in the fourth quarter. They could have won that game. And so there was this feeling of optimism as a result of the way last season ended as compared to this season. I think the other 2 major reasons why we feel this way right now. Number one is that expectations in 2024 were higher than they were a year ago. Entering 2023, we had no idea what Jordan Love was capable of as a starter. We had the youngest roster in the league. The Packers receiving core entered the season with not one wide receiver or tight end who had more than 1 year of prior NFL experience. That is the great unknown heading into the season. So you had a new starting quarterback who had 1 NFL start under his belt. The Packers could have finished anywhere from dead last in the conference to, 10 or 11 wins. And I don't think too many people would have been shocked. So there wasn't a lot of expectation heading into 2023, where this season, after the Packers won that playoff game and played the 49ers close and signed Jordan Love to the big contract extension, $55 million a season, all of a sudden, there's expectations. And the flashes that we saw from guys like Tucker Kraft and Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed and, so many of the younger players on offense and some of the players on defense as well, it raised expectations. So if the Packers went 9-8 in 2023, we were all expecting more from the Packers in 2024, and we got more. They won 2 more games out of 17 than they did a year ago. The offense, and defense were both statistically better. The running game was certainly superior big time this year than it was last year. We now actually had a top 10 defense under Jeff Hafley, which Joe Barry's defense, wasn't as aggressive. Joe Barry hoped you would make a mistake. Jeff Hafley tried to get you or force you to make a mistake. And I think philosophically that was the difference. And the defense just was better. Were they perfect? Are there things they, can still improve upon? Absolutely. But Clearly, the running game with Josh Jacobs, much better this year than it was a year ago. The run defense, wow, much better this year than it was a year ago. The Packers were third in the NFL this year in average yards per rush given up. That's like unbelievably much, much better than they were a season ago. So why are we feeling disappointed? Well, here's the other reason. I think it's this. The Packers were in every game they played this year. During the regular season, where they lost 6 games, they didn't lose by more than one score in 5 of the 6. And that was a 10-point loss to the Lions. And yet, in all of those games, what happened more than anything? The Packers beat themselves. And I'm not trying to take credit away from these other teams. I mean, the Vikings and the Lions, the Eagles, they all played well against the Packers, but those games were all winnable. They were all winnable. And the lack of discipline, the stupid penalties like lining up offside or illegal formation or delay of game. Okay, you could take an occasional pass interference or holding call. It happens. But, lining up offside, that's football 101. Dropped passes were a big problem for this team. And I think that the way the Packers beat themselves was more often than not the frustrating thing about this 2024 season. This team won 11 games, and yet you still felt they should have won more, that the talent is there. Now, injuries definitely played a part. Jordan Love wasn't healthy for a good chunk of this season. They had to play the season without, Jair Alexander played 7 games, and in one of those 7, he was on the field for a grand total of 10 snaps. Christian Watson missing some games during the season, especially he missed the playoff game and the last game of the season. That was frustrating as well. But again, this was a team that just made some, bad coaching decisions, careless mistakes, did things to hurt themselves, to shoot themselves in the foot, so to speak. And that is why I think that, combined with the higher expectations and the way they lost a lot of these games, just we don't feel as positive. But I want to say this as we head into the offseason. I think this team can take another step forward. There are going to be things they need to do. There are positions they need to address. There are players they should bring back, players they should part ways with, and then things they need to add to make this team take that next step. What we learned this year in an 11-6 season, where we were again the 7th seed in the playoffs, is this. This Packers team is good. But in order to be elite, they need to take one more step. In order to beat the other elite teams in the NFC and across the NFL, they're not there yet. They're still young. They were the youngest roster in the NFL again in 2024. But whether it's coaching decisions or inexperience or discipline or just the occasional sloppy, foolish play, this team is this close to being elite, but they're not quite there yet. They're good to very good, but they're not elite. And this offseason, it is up to Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur and Jeff Hafley and the coaching staff to figure out how to get from here to here for next season so that, the Packers are going head to head with the Vikings and the Lions and the Eagles and whoever else is competing in the NFC next year, because everybody knows every year is different in the modern NFL. So hopefully they do that this offseason. But those are some of the big reasons why I think, even though the Packers were 2 games better in the standings than they were a year ago, this year, right now, just feels a little more disappointing than the way we felt about this team after the 2023 season. I'm Gil Martin. I want to thank everybody for watching this video. Don't forget to check out our articles at thepackerspost.com. Hit the like button, hit subscribe, and we will bring you in-depth daily coverage of your Green Bay Packers all year long, every day, Monday through Friday. Take care, everybody. Thanks again. And of course, go Pack Go.